Hi, old lady in the mud house here. Well, Earth Day is this week, and today's Sunday. I'm up here digging dirt and working on my living room floor. And I wanted to do part two of, what I thought about Earth Day, which I think is bogus. Well, it was created in 1970 by some politician who was concerned about the environment. Now, I didn't look into him, but you either have to figure he's making money or he's on the Bill Gates team who want to depopulate the earth. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't want to look into that. All I know is this. Recycle was the big thing. Got a mosquito flying in here. Recycling. Okay, when I was a little girl, my mom was still getting milk delivered on her front porch in glass jars. And guess what she did with the empty ones? They didn't go to the recycle center and get smashed into a million bits. They went back to the milk company and they washed them. What a concept. And they actually refilled them and reused them. There was some of the jars, they had some of the paint wore off that had the company name on it, and now I'm sure they retired them eventually, but they just kept reusing the same jars over and over. So that's when I was a little girl. So then the big corporations started to take over the milk shipments to the stores and all of that instead of the dairy farms. And they determined that, first of all, plastic was cheaper. And second of all, they didn't have to rewash it. And also, it was lighter for shipment in the trucks. So they didn't have to overweight the trucks to get the delivery back and forth from the, what do they call it? Anyway, the place that all the farmers would bring their milk and they'd get them pasteurized. And then they'd bottle it up in their plastic and they'd ship it to the stores. So now we have a problem with what do you do with the plastic bottles? Well, in the beginning, they were just throwing them in the dump and didn't have to worry about anything because they were so cheap. So now we have the environmental Earth Day come up and people are concerned about where all this plastic is going. So the plastic used to go in the landfills. So now they're separating it out and some of the plastic can be melted down and reused, but most of it can't. The hard plastic and stuff, they just can't reuse it. So it gets packaged up in these big trucks into bales. They actually crush them all up and make big blocks and put bands around them. And I would say probably 50% end up in the landfill still, even though they call it recycling. And the plastics that they actually used to send to China, they would melt them down and reuse them. Well, it got too expensive to ship it overseas. So some of these garbage companies decided, well, we'll just go into international waters and dump it. There's no regulations say we can't. Out of sight, out of mind. So what do we have now? An island out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean where the currents kind of spin in a circle and collected a lot of that garbage, and now it's a giant plastic island. And we've got plastic bags, the grocery bags we use and try to reuse, and They float around in the ocean by themselves. They look like squid or jellyfish, and whales eat them, and their stomachs are full of these plastic bags, and they finally starve to death. Recycled plastic. Yeah. Let's see. What do we do next? Well, now we're going to ban the plastic bags. And we're using these reusable ones. And there's this big movement that says these are terrible. They spread bacteria. Anybody ever think about washing them? You bring home meat in this cloth bag, and you're just going to throw it back in the car? You don't wash it? I don't understand, but whatever. So, I remember we used to have baskets that we used to get our groceries in. Wooden baskets that, you ever watch Little House on the Prairie? They had baskets for their groceries. And I'm sure they didn't have a problem with reusing them every day. So the corporations are just trying to cut money, and we had the paper bags in between there, and people were complaining that trees are being cut down to make paper bags. Well, we stopped using the paper bags and went to plastic, but the trees didn't stop getting cut down. Now they're just, if they're in the way, sometimes they use them, the better ones they'll take for lumber or chop up for paper, but most of the trees are put in a pile because they're going to raise cattle and they need grass, and the trees cover the land so the grass won't grow. So they have these giant fires, and now I'm talking about the ones in South America. But I moved down here to Tennessee. They do the same exact thing. They buy a piece of wooded land, they log it off, and whatever's left over, they bulldoze it into a pile and burn it, and plant grass for cows. The list just goes on, and so the recycle thing comes down to the individual, not the corporations. We can't depend on them to make the changes to make it work. When you go to the grocery store, all glass still can be recycled, or paper. Cardboard boxes, the milk comes in, the cardboard boxes, not the plastic ones. They actually can go into the landfill, and they actually degrade and actually turn back into soil eventually. So when you go to the grocery store and there's a plastic jug and there's a paper one, buy the paper one. If you are concerned about recycling, buy the paper one. Or if your orange juice comes in a glass jar or a plastic jug, buy the glass. The glass is still recycled. So it all comes back to knowledge. Educate yourself. What are they doing with all the plastic now that China won't take it? I think it was being sent to Indonesia, and they were just piles of plastic out in the vacant lots set on fire. They just burn it. And the people over there, they can't breathe. They have a lot of health issues because they're constantly burning the plastic because they are paid to get rid of it. So that's what they do with it. You've got to find a better way. And the only way you're going to do that is if you know, research, find out what they're doing, and make changes so that you know, okay, paper will go in the landfill, but it'll degrade a lot sooner than any plastic. And the glass bottles are being remelted and made into new bottles, or whatever they're using it for. I even know there's some places they're using it for road surfaces. So you gotta spend your dollars wisely if you want to change the world. All right, well, that's enough of my rant. Happy Earth Day! Talk to you later. Bye.